everybody. It's Monday morning. We've got a lot of you here. It's good to see you on this delightful, delightful Monday morning. I have to tell you, I'm going to get real with you. My morning was not so great, but I've got a lot of enthusiasm right now. I promise. So I'm really sleepy. I'm so sleepy. I'll tell you all about it later. But first, I want to check in, see how you were doing. How was your weekend? What did you do this weekend? Ali and I, we had charcuterie and we played a game called Sherlock Holmes, which was really exciting. It's a board game. It's actually really fun to play. Just for like let's make sure I was there. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I also got to make sure the sound is coming out from my microphone because that's always a bad thing. Perfect. It is. There's like sometimes I forget to press the button and then it's like, hey, no one can hear you. So anyway, this weekend I needed time to kind of chill out and reset, finish up my keynote. If you saw, I got that sparkly jacket. Oh my God, if you haven't seen my sparkly jacket, you have to see it. I actually have a pillow that has that same level of sparkle. It's very big though. It's very big. So I had to take it down to Seamstress on Court Street to get it taken in. So that's really exciting. So we're getting that ready. I've got my horns. Have I shown you my horns yet? Hold on. Let me show you my horns. Oh, no, they're out there. I'll show you my horns next week. So I got my horns. So I've got everything's getting ready. I ordered the swag. So if you haven't gotten your tickets yet or your registration yet for NCURA Region 1, I cannot recommend enough that you get it because people are going to be like, hey, did you see Minessa's keynote? And you don't want to be like, I didn't go to that meeting. No, you definitely want to be at this meeting. It's going to be so good. It's going to be sparkly. There's going to be fun stuff happening. It's going to be great. So let me tell you what happened to my morning. And this is actually really interesting. So this is going to be a learning lesson for anyone who is a manager or a leader or works with people who are neurodivergent or autistic. So I woke up at the ungodly hour of 4:30 this morning to get my blood drawn, which I didn't ultimately get done. I got there really, really early because they open at like 5:30. And so I thought I'd be the first in line. And I had a lot of things that I needed to get done. And so I had the day kind of really well structured. But even though I got there like really early, there were already 4 or 5 people in there. And I know that they have like an overflow room that was already full, right? Because that's when people are in that room. And so I knew that even though I had gotten there early, oh my goodness, look at that. Hi, Kelly. So good to see you. You're going to be at the Region 4 meeting. Oh my God. Look at that. This is fabulous. Hi, Kelly. You're with me live. That makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. Hopefully though, I'm going to see if my sister can record it. Because a couple of people, I think, Tanya and I were talking the other day and she said she wanted to see it as well. So she was like, you absolutely have to record it. So we'll see if we can record it. So I'm standing in the blood draw room at like 5 o'clock in the morning at this point, and the person who is at the blood draw behind the thing is not acknowledging me at all. Okay, so I'm standing there for a few minutes, and literally there's no acknowledgement. It's as if I don't even exist. And I can't decide at this point if she can't see me, which is fine, if she is ignoring me deliberately because I'm in the wrong place. Like, what is happening here? And so I need clarity as I'm autistic. So I typically I ask a lot of questions to create clarity within myself so I understand what's happening. So I asked her, I said, am I in the right place? And she said, I'll be with you in a minute. And then I noticed that she pulled out somebody's license and whatnot. And I said, oh, she's checking someone in. And as I look around, I start to do the math in my head and I realize that this is going to actually take longer than I think. I should probably leave and just do it at another place or another time. Like today isn't going to be the day that's going to happen because I think I've overbooked myself today. So I actually look around and I ask the person behind me who's sitting down, I asked them, hey, listen, can you tell me how long you've been waiting? Because I'm trying to figure out the math in my head to get an idea of, okay, I have an hour. Will I be able to do it? And the 3 people in the waiting room got very upset with me and said, we haven't been waiting long. She will get to you when she can. And I was like, whoa, I was trying to then explain what I was trying to do because I wasn't upset. I totally get it. I was just trying to do the metric in my head to figure out whether I should stay or go. So everybody was quite distressed with me at that point, and I was like, you know what, and I was like, I'm really sorry. I tried to be very cheerful because I was really cheerful. I was so cheerful. So I was like, oh my God, it's not a problem at all. I may actually just come back another time. I have an appointment. It's not a big deal. I just wanted to check. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. It was really nice, right? But as I left, I thought to myself a conversation that I had with another friend of mine who's also autistic, and how when we ask questions, whereas as a society, we typically are socialized to see questions as challenging authority, as being difficult, as not understanding or dim-witted. And I've seen this happen to myself many times, both in school and in the workplace, where asking clarifying questions is met with a lot of resistance because it is assumed to be a challenge to authority, or it's assumed to be antagonistic rather than simply a fact-finding mission so that I can figure out in my head what's going on. So I think this is something important to keep in mind for anyone, because somebody asked me the other day, how do you manage a neurodivergent employee, right? And I think it's important to recognize that when you have employees who are neurodivergent, not only is it on the employee to be able to recognize how they engage with other people so that they can make sure that they are being heard, but at the same time, it is the equal responsibility of people on the other side to recognize that even though it may not seem like you may not understand why they're asking these questions, oftentimes it's not an attempt to, to be combative. Sometimes it's just to get clarity. So I think that that's a really interesting conversation. I just wanted to kind of share it because in the context of my morning, and I messaged my friend Katie, and we love talking about these things, right? Because this is sort of our entire life in terms of, she's very heavily involved in a great many organizations. So, and so am I. And so the two of us like talking about these things and sort of like how neurotypical people and neurodivergent people, the translation matrix that is necessary, and how do we create that translation matrix. So I ended up coming home. I didn't get my blood drawn, but I'll go another day. But but I've been up since 4. So, yeah, been up since 4. But despite the early hiccup, I've got my ways to recalibrate on the drive home. I messaged Katie, as I said. I listened to some music. I went by the beach. I sat and meditated for a little bit, and I went and fed the birds. And then we have a squirrel named Seska. I fed her as well. So we fed the wildlife. It's very much like Snow White out here. But so I reset, and now I'm feeling a lot better, right? So something I want to recommend, though, is that if you do have questions or if you're curious about having conversations with managers who have really successfully managed neurodivergent employees, the two people I want to recommend are Sarah Valley and Jennifer Sabag. They were both my mentors. Sarah is my sister. Jen was my boss. And now she's my colleague and my friend. But the two of them, they really were instrumental to help me and others figure out how to engage successfully in the workplace. And the truth is, we talk about it now, but they didn't realize that that's what they were doing at the time, right? They were managing in the way that they manage people. And it just happens to be that is an ideal way to manage a neurodivergent employee. Now that we're all much older, we can contextualize all this and be like, oh yeah, look at all the things we learned. Oh my God, that's so cool. So they're really great resources. So I didn't tell them that I was going to be saying this, so feel free to send them an email. Be like, hey, Minessa said your name and said that you're really good at managing neurodivergent people. Okay, so, and of course, you're also welcome always to reach out to me if you have any questions. But speaking of Syra, she's a few weeks into teaching an RA pipeline program for Stack, which is really fun. Okay, so so much fun. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this a little bit is because I've been really personally invested in the Stack pipeline program since I heard about it a year ago. And by that, I don't mean financially invested. I mean, I believe in the program, right? And so I've been working with them and actually I'm seeing David today where I'm going to Watertown this week and have some coffee. But I was exposed to them when I was at the BI, and my continuous work with them has only continued to reinforce my belief that the Stack program is actually going to be one of the big tools to help solve the RA vacancy crisis that we're having. Because, one of my tools to feel better about anything is brainstorming about research administration. Yeah, like I'm so nerdy about research admin. I can't even, you want to sit down and have a great time with me? Let's just sit down and rap about research administration. Like, oh my God, let's talk about cost transfers. Yes. How can we do them more efficiently? Oh my God, can we talk about that, please? These are the kinds of conversations that light me up. So typically when I'm like, hey, Syra, I'm really feeling annoyed or irritated today. She'd be like, do you want to get on and just talk about research administration? I'd be like, yeah, let's do that. Yeah. So that's what we do. And it's really fun. And so, one of the things that we have talked about is how can we help solve this problem that we're all struggling with, right? Of the challenge that we're having with like when you're hiring all these people at the same time. So for example, if you have 4 or 5 vacancies, which a lot of places do, right? A lot of organizations right now don't have just 1 or 2 vacancies, they have 4 or 5. And then no sooner do they fill up to like, oh God, I've only got 1 vacancy, then a few people say they're leaving, either people who you hired like a year ago or people, who are part of the, your longstanding veterans who are ready for something new, right? So somebody mentioned that to me. And as I was thinking about it, I was like, my God, like that's a lot of work. How do you onboard 4 people? Okay, so 4 people, you get them trained, you manage the handover of portfolios that have been hanging out with people for whom that was a +2 or 3 job, right? They're already doing 2 people's jobs, and this is like an additional thing on top of it. It's a really tall order to successfully onboard those people or to not feel overwhelmed at the prospect, right? Because like on one hand, you're excited to hire people because you're like, okay, we'll get the vacancies filled. But on the other hand, that now means a huge amount of labor in terms of training them, right? That's a tall order. So one of the things that Syra and I were talking about as part of sort of like, and we've been talking about with Stack too, which is just really great, is using that program as like an onboarding, program. So basically, here's my thought, right? Because Syra's teaching it right now, so we're seeing how it all plays out. Okay, so here's what you do, right? You have like a program where you say, okay, new RAs come in. We've got 5 new RAs in this place, 3 new RAs in this place, and 4 new RAs here, right? You get them together and put them through this program, which is now sort of like an onboarding program. So it's like done during the day while they are working for like 2 days a week or, whatever, for a couple of hours. But the goal is to basically cover the things that every RA needs to know when they're first onboarding, right? And I mean every RA, like in terms of the RAs who don't know anything, right? So we all, of course, would love to hire the veterans or people who have lots of experience, because that means that they already know the questions they need to ask, the stuff that they need to do. How do you take over a portfolio that's been left to languish for a while? Like all of those things, if you've been doing this for 10 years, you've got this, right? You'll just go in there and figure it out and here you go, right? But if you have somebody new, which is what's happening right now because we're having trouble finding, a lot of the people who've been doing this for a long time are retiring or simply choosing not to do it anymore. So a lot of people are being brought in who don't have RA experience, which I actually think is fabulous because they're bringing in all these new ideas, new thoughts. It's fabulous, right? But at the same time, you've still got to learn the basics of research administration, right? So we're toying with the idea of being like, so you put people through that. And then at the same time, you have almost like an office hours of Q&A that's basically an education leader on the team without the cost of a full-time training specialist to do the whole thing. So what's happening is that this is going to, I think this is like something that could catch on because it's a way to kind of lighten the load of training because off of the people who right now are already carrying 3 or 4 portfolios, right, on their own, like some of your superstars and things like that. So I thought this was like a really cool idea. So anyway, I mean, you know how much I love talking about training research administration. So here's the thing. If you are interested in the pipeline program as it is right now, because we're talking about turning into an onboarding program, but if you're the pipeline program, there's nothing really on the website because all of this is coming together really quickly. So if you've got suggestions, you can shoot them off to me, to Syra, to David. We can, like I said, this is what we get excited about, just talking about research administration, how we can help solve these problems. And there's so many exciting opportunities coming out of this conversation. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the future. Which reminds me, I wanted to touch base about speaking of vacancies. So, hold on. You know what I did today? I was really smart. Today, I actually brought myself an extra mug of tea so that I didn't have to go out and get it. There we go. And then you know what else I have, which is really cool? I designed the mug. Look at that. It's so cute. I can't believe I have a lipstick on my mug. Look at that. There was a time where I would not have worn lipstick if you paid me to do it, because I was so afraid of being seen as a woman. But it was weird because at the same time I hadn't really come out yet. It was very weird. Gender is weird, but it's so funny now when I see the lipstick there, I see something totally different than I saw before. So it's really funny. Okay, let's talk about vacancies, because I know that a lot of you are actually looking for jobs. Some of the reasons, whatever the reasons why are, there's a lot of people who are looking for jobs right now. The main reasons, actually, I know the reasons why. Two of the main reasons are, top two things that people are looking for when they are looking for jobs is salary and the option to do the work remotely or flex scheduling, right? You know, the biggest issue that exists right now is that people are looking for remote work, and as some organizations are mandating a return to work or some sort of a hybrid schedule, either managers are doing some fancy footwork to make it so that their staff do not have to come into work. And those of you who are doing it, you are so brilliant. You are so brilliant. I've heard some of the things you're doing, and it's like, I love it. I love, love, love how much you are finding ways to make the system work for you, which I know is really, really hard. And you are the unsung heroes of your staff. So I just want to say that that's so amazing. Thank you so much for all of that on behalf of everyone who gets to benefit from it. I know that those are very, very hard won battles. The other challenge is salaries, right? So salaries, I'm going to tell you, my personal opinion is that salaries for RAs are just ridiculously low, and that ideally at a bare minimum, someone who has no research administration experience, who you believe has the capacity to be a research administrator, which means they have transferable skill sets and the what you would consider the je ne sais quoi that makes someone a good research administrator, which there is a list. I just don't want to go through it, right? That starts at 85K. And then once you have a couple of years of experience, you're at 100K. Like, that's it, right? I recognize saying those words that that's a giant ship to turn, especially looking at the salaries for many of the positions that are out there right now. So it's unlikely at what I just said is going to come to pass for the next couple of years, right? But I typically don't look at salary rates when I am saying, hey, look, there's a vacancy available. What I do look at, though, is 100% remote. So any job that I share on this show is going to be 100% remote. But the salary is going to be, and we're going to talk about the salary in a second, actually, because there's something so interesting. Oh my God, deliciously interesting happening about the salary situation. So we'll come back to that in a second, though, because so delicious. So, but anyway, turning the ship of salary is a giant thing. That's not going to happen overnight. However, the remote stuff is happening now. The flex work schedules is happening now. And there are a lot of people who are working so hard to make sure that the jobs that are out there are remote. So the ones that are here, there's one at Drexel, so our grant and research administrator, that is fully remote. Then we have one, there's one in the University of California. Let's see. So this one, the University of California, no, that's what that one is. Unfortunately, I think that one, I'm going to have to fix that link. That link I'll have to fix. Then there is one, there we go. USC, the University of Southern California, has an associate research administrator position available. That one looked really sweet. That one looked totally sweet. And it actually, most locations in the US, hourly range on this one is $40.88 to $40.88 and $44 to $44. So that's actually not bad. Okay. There are a few at MIT. So I'm going to post the links for that in the library, in the post, my God, in the post. And I'll also make another post with these links in it. The one at MIT, though, the hiring manager is amazing. Amazing. I can tell you that if there's one that I recommend, because I know the hiring manager, it will be the ones at MIT that I post. And the reason why I want to specifically highlight this one is because I can say with 100% confidence that we're talking about, because I know the person, we're talking about someone who really, really cares about their employees, like as an individual, right? So it's like, it's not like, okay, here, we're all research administrators. It's like, you as a person, what do you need? You as a person, what do you need? Like, the definition of inclusion the expansive definition, right? So that it makes sure that each person feels seen and their needs are met and that they feel safe. So if you're interested in any of those jobs, if you're interested in the one in MIT, feel free to message me. I can connect you. If you're interested in any of the others, the links will be in the post and then you can apply for them. But all of these are remote. So enjoy that part, right? Enjoy that part. For the salary part, okay, this is just a fascinating conversation now. By the way, I'm going to keep sharing jobs because opportunities abound. This is a time for opportunity right now. Interesting conversation about salary equity. Okay, so this is so delicious right now. I can't even, okay? So the situation with our job vacancies is terrifying for many people, of course. Sometimes I get all riled up, right? And I'm like in that space where I'm like, okay, let's work on the salary. This is the increase it needs and so on and so forth. And there's a time for that kind of passion. Right now, it's not that time. Right now, in this particular portion of the conversation, we got to take a more detached look and sort of observe the state of affairs more like a Vulcan than like a Klingon. And one of the things that just came out, so I read an article in Science. Okay, so it's basically an article where what they found, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it in a minute, but what they found was that fewer U.S. scientists are pursuing postdoc positions in academia. Okay, so they are opting to not go into their postdoc fellowships and instead go straight into industry. Okay. Now, this is actually fascinating on many, many levels. Okay. So sometime in the last year or so, and my memory isn't great, but I know it was sometime in the last year or so. We all had this conversation. Many people were having the conversation about the research fellows and because the NIH had increased the salary, salary minimum for them by a significant amount, right? And so all of the institutions had to kind of go through and just figure out where they were at and then increase as necessary. And obviously you don't need to decrease, right? And some institutions were fine because they already had put systems in place to create greater equity among academic scholars on the career track. And then others had to go through and figure out, okay, how, salary increases and do what needed to be done. Okay. Now, where this came from, right, was that the NSF noticed that there was a significant dip in U.S. postdocs, especially in biological and biomedical sciences. 8% drop in a single year. Okay. Now, the interesting things about this is that postdoc on temporary visas rose 6%. Okay. So the institutions across the country now were starting to lose talent, okay, which started to spark real concern, enough concern that the NSF had to study it to figure out, hey, what's happening? So when the NSF dug deeper, it was evident that the actual culprit of all of this were the salaries, okay? So biotech companies were luring early career scientists to their organizations because they were offering better pay. Now, here's the thing. Not a single person who is in biotech or in the biological and biomedical sciences is surprised to hear this. Like we knew that this was happening, right? But now it was evident on a leadership and systemic scale, right? So this had leaders like Tom Kimbis and Donna Ginther in their, they were basically now trying to figure out how is the U.S. going to sustain a homegrown academic community when you have 6% of temporary visas increasing, which means people are coming from outside the country to do their postdoc positions here. And then you have 8% of U.S. People opting not to do the postdoc, right? Exactly. Oh, Kelly, good point. The mentors aren't retiring, so there's not an unlimited opportunity for independent faculty positions as well. Absolutely. So the problem to respond to this was that they basically proposed a hike in the minimum postdoc salary last December, right? Which they also had improved benefits and professional development, to your point, Kelly, and more opportunities for them to grow within academia, right? So what's really interesting though is that doesn't actually, that kind of mirrors what's happening in research administration as well, right? We're finding that a lot of people are ditching, either they're ditching research administration altogether, they're going into consulting, they're going into industry, or they're leaving one organization to go to another organization, to another organization, to another organization, or they're going off to do their own thing. But we are finding that there is a reduction in the amount of people who want to do this job, right? Now, even though that's the case, there's no national outcry for research administrators' pay like there was for the fellows, right? I went, as part of this, I was like, okay, because I've been looking at the salaries for all the positions being posted, and I dove into NCURA's resources, and our salary rates are dishearteningly low, okay? Now, what I expect to happen, and I think we all know this is, and here's the thing, I say I expect to happen because I'm the one speaking on camera right now, but this is me after having conversations with many, haha, I'm not going to fall for it this time. I saw it happen. Hold on. I'm going to fix my camera. Ooh, look at me knowing the things. If only I could find my camera. Please hold while I find my camera. Okay, that's not the one. Oh, you know what? I'm going to do it this way. Okay. All right. Look at me. Look at me. Okay, well, you can't see me right now. But you will in a minute. There we go. There we go. See? Okay. Last time I did that thumbs up thingy, it stayed frozen for like ages. And then I didn't get a clip of some really good stuff I was talking about. It was really, really upsetting. So anyway, so what's interesting is that the salaries are dishearteningly low. And I think a lot of us know that we're being underpaid for the work that we're doing, right? And ultimately, the exodus will continue until the cost of inaction becomes too great, right? So the question that I have is sort of like, how do we, as collectively, start to, like, the organizations that are currently responsible for our PR in the world, like NCURA, SRA, and others, how do we reframe our roles and push for salaries that reflect our work's complexity, right? Which for me, for many of us, we are a C-suite in training, right? The second you're hiring someone on as a research administrator, the kind of strategic things that we need to be aware of is very, very high level, even if we don't know anything about research administration in that moment when someone is hired. We are saying you are going to be someone who excels in this role, right? And it's not just a conversation that's so this is a conversation. What's interesting is that anyone at the director level and below who is in research administration is actually already having this conversation, right? I've had it with hundreds of research administrators across the country at various, NCURA and SRA and local events. We're all talking about it on the ground, right? I'm not sure what's happening at the VP level, to be perfectly honest, right? Because the general conversation seems to be that there is a strong disconnect between what is needed to maintain a strong research administrative department and what is actually being actualized at the VP and strategic level, right? So what I do know, though, so I don't know that part, but I do know this, that the organizations and institutions, right, that increase pay for their RAs, that allow their budgets to adequately reflect their desires to grow their research portfolios and allow for remote and flex work schedules, those are going to be the ones that climb out of the vacancy pit of despair first. Our tax come back, because those changes in perspective, they also typically bring with them other shifts that telegraph that an organization is a place that people really want to work. Friends will be calling their friends and be like, hey, you should come join me here. This is a great place. We have blah, we have blah, we have blah. And it's just going to be a matter of time at that point before the other organizations either start doing the same thing or they figure out that they're not able to keep up with the research workload. And then they have to decide if they're in fact research institutions or if they're just organizations that have some grants, right? And I think that's going to be up to every organization to decide. But I do think that as we continue to try to resolve this vacancy problem, it's going to need to be solved from multiple fronts, but also multiple fronts on like a collective level. Because right now, I think all organizations are trying to individually solve it one at a time. But this is like almost like a systemic issue within research administration that then will have systemic solutions. For me, I think that's really exciting because once you start to identify that, then you realize that, okay, if we can solve a couple of these problems, then we can actually have a giant impact rather than solving one problem and just having like the impact right here, right? So which is why I love and at the same time, I love and hate change. So like, I love change management once the ball starts rolling, right? And the gears are turning and you're like, okay, like it's messy and it's gross, but you're like, I can see where it's going. The part that I hate about change management is when you first walk into the garage, right? Like when you're about to like clean it out and you look at it and you're like, oh my God, I don't think I can do this. And I hired an organizer. So that's what I ended up doing. And this is why, shameless plug here, sometimes you need to hire a consultant to come in and help you. Because honestly, sometimes it's just tough to do it by yourself. Like I hired Hope to come and help me organize my house from top to bottom when I lived in Franklin. And I'll tell you, changed my frickin' life. If you are someone who's looking for an organizer in general, by the way, I have a great recommendation for someone in the South Shore. So you just need to let me know. But she books months and months and months in advance. Okay. So as we start to move around here, okay, we're sort of nearing the end of this conversation. And then I realized that I had my beloved simplified uniform guidance document that I made. I was so excited that I made it and I was going to talk about it. And then I forgot to have it up. So, do you remember what was it? Last week or the week before last, I went on this, I went to the White House announcement for the uniform guidance and how they were simplifying it. And it basically just turned out to be like let us all, thank each other for doing a great job. That was funny. However, after that, there was another webinar, and it was actually wicked helpful. I don't think I'm going to be able to read it if it's over there, so I'm just going to look over here. So you're just going to see the side of my face. And they're on my LinkedIn right now. If you look on the media, there's actually a document that you can look at that's basically just, I summarized the whole thing. I went through it and basically gives you kind of like a high-level summary of what it is. But the key element that it talked about, the first half was really about how they were going to be reviewing it, reviewing the applications, what was changing, what the scores were beyond. And that was actually very interesting. I thought it was fascinating how they were going to be making those adjustments. And then they talked a little bit about the updated forms and the transition to the updated forms. So they had a comprehensive sort of timeline in terms of, okay, this is when we're going to be updating the forms. Everything's going to be effective before on the grants that are being submitted on or after January 25th, 2025. And those will be on Forms I. Okay, so those are now going to be on Forms I. They've extended the the parent announcements for a lot of the earlier ones. So for the R01 and the R03 and the R21 and those kinds of things. And then as they update the forms, they will release the new notices just like they've done in the past. It's interesting though, some of us have been through this so many times. I mean, we're on Form I now, right? I remember when it was Pure Edge. Heck, I remember when it was, oh God, the papers. Oh, can I just tell you, there was nothing more satisfying. There was nothing more satisfying than having your grant neatly printed out. So you just look at it, right? And you put it in the envelope and then you do the thing and then you just take it out and then you mail it. And like, first of all, it gave you that feeling of check, I am done, right? But it was also almost impossible to work on it from everywhere because you had to do everything on paper and like everyone had like their versions. And then you had to like collate everything. Anyway, I really love those paper ones. And what's interesting is that I only did a few like that before we switched over to Pure Edge. And Pure Edge, for those of you who were around for that, was not an Adobe form. It was not Assist. It was not grants.gov with the little PDF packages. No. I remember driving the box full of papers to the airport. Kelly, can I tell you that there are RAs who have this story, like, who like literally are driving it up to the FedEx plane. Like, please take the grant. Like, you're like a superhero, with the grant. Oh my God. But what was great though? Once it was there, once you'd handed it over to FedEx, you were done. You were so done. You're like, I'm finished. And you were also the hero. I feel like, the problem with, and I'm obsessed with technology, so don't get me wrong. I am all about technology. I'm all about all the things. ChatGPT. By the way, don't forget to do the survey. Thanks, Kelly, for sharing my post. Guys, check out my LinkedIn. Folks, check out my LinkedIn. There's a post on there about the artificial intelligence survey that the ERA Collaborate Committee is doing, and also the AI Committee. We banded up together this year because we wanted to do conversations on AI, so we're collectively doing it. I have a post on my page, my personal page on LinkedIn, that basically says, hey, we have a survey about AI. Tell us how you use it, because we want to know how you use it. Please share that post. Yes, shamelessly asking you to share, because we want to get lots and lots of people filling out that survey. And so feel free to share it. If you want to write your own post, feel free, go ahead. The link is in my post. You're welcome to take it. Oh yes, I love technology. ADHD moment there. I love technology, but at the same time, I feel like it has put us in a position, and this is actually why my whole career now is on how do you successfully work from home remotely? How do you create boundaries so that you're creating progress when you're working, and then you feel comfortable clocking out, like, without guilt, right? Because I was talking to someone the other day and I said, listen, clocking out is easy. Okay. Anyone can clock out. Anyone can turn off their computer, right? Here's what I want to know. How are you, like, looking on your phone, or are you phantom working while you're doing the dishes? Oh, Dr. So-and-so wants to do this with the thing. Yeah, no, that doesn't count as clocking out. That counts as, that's phantom working. That's still working. You're still scratching that itch. And we'll talk about that in a minute, about one of those tactics, because I have a new video out on that. But as much as I love the new technology, there was something about taking those papers and just printing it out and just sending them all the way. But Pure Edge, guys, Pure Edge was an application on its own. Kelly, do you remember Pure Edge? It was like this app you had to install on your computer, and then you'd open it, and then there was a package, and it was so buggy. It was so buggy that, like, your files would get corrupt. You had to save them. You had to make sure that you had copies, because God, if it got corrupt, you'd just lose everything and you have to start all over again. I was very delighted when they moved over to Adobe. So happy. And then personally, look at me geeking out about, look at me, I'm like, and I also love Assist. Personally, I absolutely love Assist. I do. I really love Assist. Like, I know it's weird, but I do love Assist. Okay. So you can check out the uniform guidance, announcement on on my page. Okay. So let's see. What have we covered today? Let's make sure that we talked about everything. We talked about getting my blood drawn. That was sad, which I didn't get my blood drawn. We talked about, the Stack pipeline program, and reach out to me if you are interested in learning more about it. We have some cool grants and stuff that we're working on too, because we're trying to make it so that it's at minimal or no cost to the institutions if we can, because again, we're trying to solve a problem here. Our department admin was the only one who used it. We just provide all the files. Oh, wow. Way back when you were a baby administrator. You know, I'm writing my keynote right now for, for the NCURE Region 1 meeting. And, Kelly, like, I've had to go back into my, like, baby RA days, and I have a picture of me when I was a baby RA, and I'm like, man, I was so insecure and I was so scared. And I remember being so excited, right? Like, I remember having my spreadsheets. Like, it was there is a very different experience you have of research administration when you have enough work and you do not have a tsunami of work, right? I think what I remember most about that time is that I was adequately portfolioed. So I had the right amount. And in fact, because we were staffed adequately, or relatively adequately at the time, because this was before ARA and before COVID, even as I grew, my portfolio grew. And it was actually really, now that I look back, I'm actually impressed with the adeptness with which the directors weaved people's portfolios. And I remember, now that I look back, I can see how it used to be a lot easier, because the workload that existed was just much more appropriate. Okay. So, all right. So we talked about the pipeline program. We'll come back to, we'll definitely talk about that way, way more, because that's something that's, like, near and dear to my heart. We talked about salaries. We talked about vacancies. If you are looking, by the way, if you're looking, let me know. Or if you have jobs, let me know, right? I have people who are looking. I have people who have jobs. I love connecting people with jobs. So if somebody's like, oh my God, I really want a compliance job, and I have a friend who has a compliance job open, I'll be like, oh my God, you should talk to this person, and just do the connecting, right? Because people are more likely to stay in positions that they are excited about based off of like what it is, and having that personal connection really does make a difference when you're moving into a new organization. So I'd love to be able to be that bridge for you, or connect you with people who can be the bridge for you. Then we talked about salaries. That one. Okay. So here's the thing I'd love to know about that. I would love it if whatever thoughts you have on this, I'd love to hear them. I don't necessarily know that I'm right about everything, right? So part of this isn't about like, I think I'm right, but I'd love to have more conversations about it, right? Because I think it's the conversations that are really important. The conversations will get us where we need to go. My opinions can change, adapt, and grow along with the conversation. But I would love it if we could find a way to get this conversation to be at a level at which we can start talking about real change over the next few years in terms of the kinds of salaries that people command in research administration. Again, like I said, that's a much longer conversation than anybody has time for right now. Two last things. One, this week, Attain on the 24th. Go to Attain on LinkedIn. They have an event. Gil Tran is doing a comprehensive deep dive into the simplified uniform guidance. That's why I haven't been going into it too deeply, because frankly, he's the expert at it. And I would much, much rather hear it from him. So I keep talking about it briefly just to sort of make sure it's on your radar. But then I want to direct you to the person who really knows his shit, and that's Gil Tran. So I will share that link again to make sure everybody has registered. So just make sure you're following my LinkedIn page. But it's going to be on the 24th, which I think is Wednesday. It's going to be on Wednesday. Okay. So make sure you mark your calendars. It is Wednesday at, kya time pe hai? It is Wednesday at, right after my therapy. So it's Wednesday at 1. I have therapy at noon. Yay. I love therapy. Okay. All right. And last but not least for today, check out Minessa.tv. My newest video is up for Commitment to Clock Out. It is called Notifications, how to make your notifications work for you. So this conversation is actually about, there are many, many things in our lives, like we were talking earlier, that create stress and pressure. It's administrative workload. It's too big portfolios, salary, whatever. Those are things that we cannot necessarily control right now, but there are things being done in various levels to help impact that. However, at the same time, we have a lot of agency around how we engage with our work, specifically how we interact with technology or how we allow technology to interfere with our day-to-day workflow. Most people have allowed technology to significantly interfere with their productivity, their flow time, their ability to create progress, and often they don't even know it. So I've been working with executives and research administrators and entrepreneurs for about 10 years on this. And very few people, now it's actually interesting because more people understand how notifications and things like that impact them, but there's more of a story of I simply cannot turn them off, as opposed to the discussion that used to exist. So when I first started training and coaching on this, the actual conversation was I had to convince people that notifications were bad. And then we had to talk about how to get them off, right? Now the conversation is more about everybody knows that notifications interfere, but we're not sure how to deal with it, right? How can I be productive? How can I give the kind of customer service that I want to give and also maintain my boundaries? That is the hardest thing I think for us to do as research administrators because we're people pleasers. So episode 8 is about setting the so if there's a lot of steps to it, that's why there's a bunch of small videos. They're all very short, but the notifications one specifically talks about what can you do with your notifications to ensure that you're on top of the things that you need to be on top of, while at the same time protecting your mind and body from unnecessary interferences from technology. So I recommend checking that out. I have a lot of posts coming up over the course of the week about that, so you can check that out as well. In the meantime, if there's anything at all that you want to hear me talk about, send me a message. Let me know. I can talk about just about anything. Usually I pick the things that I'm interested in or the things that I see that you're talking about on LinkedIn or things that show up on my feed. But if there is something specific that you're like, hey, I could use help with this, or I have a question about that, feel free to message me. You can say, hey, listen, I want to be anonymous. You can totally be anonymous. It'll be great. Otherwise, I'm going to leave now because I'm going to go have brunch with Dave Yurgau from Stack, which is going to be really exciting. And we're going to be talking more about this whole onboarding thing and this whole support thing. So it's going to be super exciting. I will keep you guys updated on that story. Otherwise, have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Kelly, thank you for joining me this morning. It was so nice. And for those of you who did not comment, I did see that there were a bunch of you on LinkedIn. For those of you who were on LinkedIn, thank you so much for joining me. I hope one day that you'll comment as well, but it's also great to just have you there. I will see all of you next week. And just as a reminder, on Monday, May 7th, I won't be here because I'm going to be doing my keynote at the moment that I would typically be here. Have a wonderful rest of your day and the rest of your week. Take care.